it's not the type of message necessarily that someone wants to hear, that their suffering can have great purpose for them in increasing their faith and helping them draw closer to God. Because when you're going through suffering, the first thing you want to do is to eliminate the suffering. You want to hope for better circumstances, better emotions, that the things that are going on are going to change, they're going to go away. And no one enjoys suffering. Suffering is a part of this fallen world. It's not the way that God designed it before the fall. And I know that many of you are suffering right now. I know that you are suffering a lot right now. For me, myself, I've spoken many times about my chronic illness, Lyme disease, all the things that I've lost over the years, the place that I got to in my health of being so completely incapacitated. And after seeing some really good improvement in recent times, I've had another crash recently, which has been incredibly frustrating. It's been a dark time, a lonely time, and when I crash, I basically can't do anything. The last few days, I've just been resting all day, and I'm there alone, trapped as a prisoner in my body, wanting to just get up and do things, and my body's just not allowing me to. And it's so hard. And you might be going through something similar, or you might have other struggles that you're going through. I was reading Ecclesiastes chapter 7, and there's one passage that when I first read this, the first time I read it years ago, it made no sense to me. But I'll explain it to you in a moment. It says that the day of death is better than the day of birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For this is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness the face of the heart is made glad. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of the fools is in the house of mirth. And I look at that and I think to myself, well, why would it be better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting and celebration? And when we go to that place, when we encounter those difficult things, in this passage is talking about confronting death and confronting our own mortality, recognizing that we are here for a finite time. It really puts things into perspective. And in the same way with our suffering as well. When things are going well for us, it's so easy to become so dull to spiritual realities. It's so easy to become complacent, and we don't we remain in that place of comfort. It's so easy to neglect spiritual things. Sometimes when we go through suffering, it really shakes us, it stirs us, it does something in us. It brings us face to face with something far deeper than just the passing pleasures of life. And I know for me, over the last few days, it's done something in me. It's made me stop. I haven't been able to do anything. I've been crying out to God. I've been drawing closer to Him in prayer. I've been asking Him, Lord, what are your purposes? How do you want me to do things? How should I reorganize and reprioritize my life around you? It's really got me thinking. Whereas leading up to that, I see that I was in a state of much complacency. I saw that the Chinese word for suffering, for crisis, also contains the word for opportunity in it. And that's really cool, because in every crisis there really is an opportunity. When things are shaken up inside of us, it gets our attention, and sometimes pain and suffering and circumstances, God doesn't cause them, but He allows them, and they are God's megaphone shouting at us, getting our attention that He can't otherwise get when we're in a state of complacency and everything's going okay. Some of the things with suffering that I've learnt over the years is that, first of all, in comparison to eternity, this suffering is not worth comparing to the glory that is to be revealed. Romans 8:18. We also see in 2 Corinthians 4:16 to 18, I think it is, where it talks about any suffering being a light momentary affliction compared to the eternal weight of glory which it's preparing. I've also learnt that God cares deeply. There's no suffering that is trivial to him, and he sees it and he loves you. Psalms say that he stores up your tears in a bottle. So in other words, he's taking account of every bit of suffering that you're going through. Psalm 34:18, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted, he saves the crushed in spirit. Beautiful words. And the other thing I've learned about suffering is that there are purposes in suffering. And the greatest purposes are, one, to draw you closer to God. And secondly, to help you to become like Jesus, to grow you, to sanctify you. So if you're going through suffering right now, if you're experiencing something, use this as an opportunity. None of us want this opportunity. We'd rather it not be here. We'd rather not have the suffering. Use it as an opportunity to just pause, to come before God, to cry out to him and say, God, have your way. What do you want to speak to me? What do you want to do? And use it as an opportunity to draw closer to God, to experience the characteristics of God, the attributes of God that can be experienced most deeply during those times, that he is the God of all comfort, his mercy, his love, his care. Come before him and know that there is a purpose in your suffering. No matter how unpleasant it is, we all have to go through it. And having wrong expectations will lead to disappointment. Disappointment is the gap between expectations and realities. And if we have the expectation that suffering is not a part of the Christian life, then we're mistaken, because the Bible tells us that it is. And we live in this fallen world. So friend, if you're suffering, don't despair, don't lose hope, and keep your eyes on the bigger picture. Use it as an opportunity to draw closer to God, for him to conform you to Jesus Christ. And this time, no matter how hard, will not be lost and will have eternal significance in your life. Bless you, brothers and sisters.